following podcast is a Jill Devine Media production.
Christianity has become known for judgy people, strange words, ancient stories, confusing rules, and a members-only mindset. This is why I stayed away from the church for so long, but it's not supposed to be that way. I'm Jill Devine, a former radio personality with 3 tattoos, a love for a good tequila, and who's never read the entire Bible. Yet here I am hosting a podcast about faith. The Normal Goes a Long Way podcast is your home for real conversations with real people using real language about how faith and real life intersect. Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome back to part 2 of the conversation with Pastor Jim Mueller. So we left off in our last conversation talking about the songs that really made a difference, really made an impact on you. So let's talk about it. What are those songs?
I'll take you back to 9-year-old Jim.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, the year was 1985 when all music was bad, says some people. But it's the music I grew up with, so I loved it, right? 80s, it meant hair bands, not bands in your hair, but literally bands that had long hair. And a song comes out by Mr. Mister that hits number 1 in the charts. And they only had a couple songs, 2 or 3, I think, that were really top 40 charters.
Okay.
So they weren't a one-hit wonder, but at most, maybe a 2 or 3 hit wonder. But one song came out that was Kyrie Eleison. And when I would hear it as a 9-year-old kid, I thought, oh my gosh, this is what we sing in church. And I don't think anybody knows it. And then I even heard some people would sing the lyrics to it. And instead of Kyrie Eleison, they would sing carry a laser or something like that. They were in their minds, they must have been saying something like that. And of course, you would know some of the lyrics, and I'll just read a couple lyrics. I won't sing them here.
Okay.
But the wind blows hard against this mountainside, across the sea into my soul. It reaches into where I cannot hide, setting my feet upon the road. A lot of great imagery there. And I'm going to tell you, every single one of those lines could have come from the Psalms. And it does come from the Psalms. Not that the author of the song, the authors of the song, the band, took them from the Psalms, but I mean, they could be direct quotes. And then the chorus, which is the name of the song, Kyrie Eleison, down the road that I must travel.
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie Eleison, through the darkness of the night. Kyrie Eleison, where I'm going, will you follow? Kyrie Eleison, on a highway in the night. Now, we sang that phrase, Kyrie Eleison, in church all the time, and I knew what it meant. And I knew what it meant because my grandfather was a pastor and actually had his PhD. So I was raised in a very educated Christian environment at home, even though I didn't go to a Christian school. I knew that Kyrie meant Lord.
Okay.
So every time in the Gospels that you have the disciples saying, Lord, Lord, where are you going? Or Lord, what are we supposed to do? They're using the word in Greek, and is Kyrie or Kyrios. Kyrie.
Okay.
And eleison means have mercy. So the phrase Kyrie Eleison is Lord have mercy, all throughout that song, over and over and over again. And it's a uniquely Christian phrase. It's a New Testament phrase. And again, just for our listeners, the New Testament was originally written in Greek, because Greek was the language of the Roman Empire at the time. And this pattern of calling on God, the Trinity, in triplet was common in Roman Catholic churches, Eastern Orthodox churches, and then even found its way in many other churches, including the church I grew up in. And so in the traditional church that I had, we followed that same pattern. We would chant Kyrie Eleison, Christo Eleison, Kyrie Eleison, which means Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. So it's like you're singing to God the Father, you're singing to Christ specifically, the God we know, Jesus, and then you're singing to the Holy Spirit. So, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. And you would repeat this over and over and over again. And I always, as a kid, I always thought of that as a desperate prayer. Repeated and repeated, Lord have mercy. Sort of, I'm so out of options. Or God, I'm so out of breath. And I don't know what to say. So I'm just begging for mercy. And there I was. I guess my point being, I was 9 years old and I was hearing that same desperate prayer on Top 40 radio station, and it was good. In my 80s music loving opinion, it was a good song. And I thought, how beautiful that this band, this hair band, can't help it that in the middle of their catalog, they had to write a song about those times in life where, as humanity, we're so desperate that we would just call out, Lord, have mercy down the road I must travel. Lord, have mercy through the darkness of the night. Where I'm going, will you follow, God? Like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Well, I have to wonder, back then, I mean, I feel like this could be on a Christian radio station now. Back then, I don't even feel like that was an outlet.
They didn't really have Christian radio stations back then. It wasn't until a few years after, I believe, if I had to guess, that really some pretty well-known, like Amy Grant. When Amy Grant became famous as a Christian artist first, and then a popular artist later, that was really towards the end of the 80s more.
Correct.
I think this song was actually redone by a Christian artist named Mark Schultz, if I remember. But that would have been done more like in the, if I guess, late 90s or early 2000s.
And there's some crossover now.
Sure.
Not a lot.
Sure.
But there's some. I just have to wonder, like, why can't there be... Okay, maybe I should reword this. Do you know, was Mr. those guys openly say they were Christians, they were believers? Do you know anything about that portion?
I won't label them anyway. I do know that one of the band members who was helping with the phrase Kyrie eleison and the words, he said, I remember singing this in my Episcopal church as a kid.
Okay.
And so I just read that, like where their faith was in their personal lives, I really have no clue.
But there's something to be said.
That he's, So, one of them remembers the phrase from his Episcopal upbringing, at least in church. So that was something that I read. But again, I never looked into this.
Right.
Like as a kid, I just heard it and I'm like, oh, there must be.
That's it. Yeah. You felt it.
Yeah. And whether somebody, when you're in a band and you're touring, whether or not you're actively following Christ or not, I still think, though, that it's cool that at the human level, they knew humans have this desperation in us. Sometimes we have to be able to sing out like that. And like I said, sometimes when life gets bad enough, and it will, at times, even the atheist gets desperate enough, they're going to have to fold their hands sometimes.
So we will have all of the Gospel According to You 2 sermon series on the show notes page at normalgoesalongway.com. But I want to talk about two more things before we wrap up.
Yeah.
The two things, I do want to talk about Beautiful Day and cover art for the album.
Yeah.
And then also like there's so much work that you guys put into these sermons that maybe didn't make it to the actual sermon. So I want to also end with that. But let's talk about the terminal, the airport terminal, because that still blows my mind. I've told about, I don't know how many people about this.
Yeah. To start, like you two and Bono in particular, they were always drawn to shooting videos and taking pictures and things like that from airports because they believe that the airport is the first thing you see when you meet a city. And of course, when you tour like they've been like so many places, but you meet your first Roman person when you land in Rome's airport, or you meet your first, like New Yorker when you land in LaGuardia. Like, I think that's what he was saying is like, you meet the people, you get to smell some of the food, you get to see a little bit of like their artisticness and things like that. And so that album was shot at Charles de Gaulle airport. They included just like this little thing that kind of looks like a digital clock, but I think most people would have assumed that it's displaying a flight number.
Yes.
Which was J33.3. But as the band explained and Bono explained, no, that's God's phone number. Jeremiah 33:3, call unto me and I will answer. Basically, he's saying like all of us can have God on speed dial. Just putting that on an album cover and thinking about it that way. And I love that thought that like God gives us his phone number from the very beginning. And it's as simple as just a prayer, So
I don't know. I thought that was just so fascinating. And I love hearing little things like that. And it's just like, whoa, yes, that's really cool.
Yeah.
What else about your research that you would like to share? Or, I mean, just anything that the listener might be able to resonate with. I just keep thinking about that one person who is like, I don't know. I mean, kind of like me, where I don't know all the stuff. I don't know all the things. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. What about this? What about that? And just how something, I don't even want to use the word simple because it's not, but it feels simple, like music can be that catalyst.
The amazing thing about a song like Beautiful Day is you're actually not going to hear it on a beautiful day. It's probably going to show up or start playing or come up on your playlist or come over the radio on a day that's really miserable. And so a song like that, and I think the band knew this, by the way. This is one of the things they talked about, and I didn't really have the time to go there, but the song is meant to redirect you on your crappy days. It's not meant to amplify your super great days. And we all need that. We need to know that there's hope when we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we become wiser in life, we need to know how to find it when we're in those days.
Yes.
So it's like you would, on a bad day, you should force yourself to reflect on a song like Beautiful Day. And the Bible's filled with those stories. Like I brought up Noah when I was teaching on this, just because of some of the imagery and the verses of the song, but I really wanted to talk about Job. Job is the craziest book in the Old Testament. I actually studied it in detail, verse by verse in Hebrew when I was in seminary. So it was one of the, actually I was at Cambridge University and I studied it with maybe the best Job scholar in the world. He had the book of Job in Hebrew memorized. And I know this because he was blind by the time I became a student.
Oh, wow.
And so as I'm translating like through the book, he could say, oh, no, parse out this word and go to page, whatever, 300 and something in your Hebrew Bible. And I'd flip and I'm like, there, it's exactly as he says it. And he would just say it from memory, these lines in Hebrew, forcing me to get my syntax right and everything else. Is unbelievable. But what I want to share with everybody is the story of Job is amazing because it opens with just a couple chapters of narrative. And then it's 30-something chapters of poetic misery and searching. And then a couple more chapters at the end of an explanation. So the story starts with Job having a wonderful life, family, kids, wealth, so successful. And Satan believes that nobody in the world is really righteous and wants to follow God. And God says, well, what about my man Job? And Satan says to God, well, if you weren't giving him everything, he would curse you. God doesn't believe it. He believes in Job. He believes in who he is. And so Satan gets after him and has his kids die in an accident and has his wealth squandered and his herds and everything that would symbolize wealth at the time. Job just loses everything. His wife even comes to him and says, it's time for you to curse God so you can just die. He had welts on his skin. I mean, he had lost everything, his family. He had lost his wealth. He had lost his health. I just imagine boils and things everywhere. And he tears his clothes and screams in just agony. But he refuses to curse God. He doesn't blame God. And then he has these 3 friends that come in. And that's the 30-something chapters are basically them going back and forth with him. Where they're like, if you would just, there must have been something you did to deserve this terrible thing. And Job's like, no, sometimes terrible things happen not because we did something. They happened not because of us, but they happen to us. See, sin isn't just the thing you commit. Sin's also the brokenness you're just experiencing. No kid is born with leukemia, and we would ever think to blame their parents or them. Like, of course not. And yet so often, you know what? It kind of seems like we are, or we're wondering it. And so Job just explores that over and over again, where his wife and these friends are trying to convince him that God must be against him and it'd be better for him to just die. And Job just won't give in to all that. He just won't. And at the end of the book, finally, like, Job is calling out to God and saying, how could any of this happen? And how is this okay? And God finally spends a chapter plus saying to him, Job, you want to know the answers to the secrets of the universe, essentially. Like, were you there when I measured out the heavens? Were you there when I took my tape measure out and literally got everything perfect? And, the gravitational pull of the moon and the earth. I mean, just stuff like that. Like, God is just kind of explaining this whole thing to him. Essentially, he's asking him, Job, are you really asking to get to decide all this stuff? What's right and wrong and what's just and unjust? And do you really want that responsibility? And Job just kind of prays a repentant prayer. No, I don't want that. And I don't really doubt you. Then God blesses him. His health is restored. His wealth is multiplied from even where it was. He receives a family again, better and more beautiful. It even describes like all his kids are mega beautiful this time. Like, it's just amazing at the end. And I think in a way what it is it's a proverb. I'm not saying the story's not true, but I'm saying it is kind of a proverb about life. It's a lesson about life. Is at the start of his story, of course it's a beautiful day. At the end of his story, of course it's a beautiful day. But what about in the middle of that? Because there's a lot of days that we're there and things are falling apart. And what are we going to say about God? And what are we going to say about life? And what are we going to say about love and beauty on those days? And Job surely had his doubts and had his trouble. But there was a certain step he wasn't willing to go to. And that's what God meant from the beginning when Satan was saying, oh, all humanity is just trash. God's like, no, I believe in him. And let me show you Job. He is a good man. And that's when I think about the song Beautiful Day, like, that's an example of one where I'm like, oh, can I be like Job on my worst days? With also some hope that I know that beautiful day is coming. So I'm going to live like it's about to come. I'm not going to live in the misery I'm in right now.
So basically,
the sermon could have been an hour and a half. Yes, basically. Sorry.
No, but like what you said was when you were saying Satan was basically saying all humanity is trash.
Yeah.
That there are people like Job in the world that keep showing Satan that he's wrong.
Yeah.
And that we have to, for our own sake too, like, we have to keep holding on to that.
Yeah.
And I think that really hit me, because thinking about it all, like, if Satan was right, everybody would be trash. We wouldn't be having these conversations. There are good people that remind us of the beautiful day in the darkest days.
I completely agree. And I would just say to anybody out there, we all can be Job.
Yeah.
The problem is, how are we going to respond on the day that's between the beautiful days? Can we find beauty in that too? And I think that's what I really resonate with that song. It's like Bono is singing "It's a Beautiful Day" because he's trying to convince himself.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I know exactly what that's like.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly what that's like. And that's the problem with life, because the story of the Bible is a story of trees. It begins with the tree. Things are good.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's lost.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it ends with the tree. At the end of Revelation, it ends with the tree, where we're back again with the tree of life and humanity's restored and beautiful. The problem is we live between the trees. And if Satan's right, and the only reason any of us ever praise God is because everything goes fine in life, well, then none of us are going to end up praising God, because life isn't always going to be great. And by the way, I don't want to be good to people just because things are going well for me. Like, I hope I would be a good person in prison. I hope I could bless people even if I was poor. I hope, and my soul is strong enough that I can love even if nobody would love me back, or I would be kind even if nobody was kind to me. I'm not sure I have it. It appears that Job had a lot of that, and I really admire that.
Yeah.
And so that's when I think of a song like "A Beautiful Day," it's that mantra that I want to say to myself to convince myself to have a little bit more hope, even when stuff sucks. And I want to just say, Jill, this is like why I'm drawn to the scriptures, because some of these stories I've probably told dozens of times. And even for me, why doesn't it get old? I think it's because it's showing me how to truly live.
I've often wondered that too. This is a whole nother episode. Like, the same things over and over again. How do you get inspiration? But we'll do a different series on that. I mean, my gosh, but there has to be something that you take away each time. Also, just like with music, as much as you have listened to that song, Beautiful Day, or insert your favorite song here, whatever it is, depending on the day, you will take something out of it that you didn't before.
And it will become deeply specific and personal to the day you're having that day. That's what changes it.
That's what I love about music. I remember somebody asked me something along the lines like, why is this such a passion of yours? I said, because every single song evokes a memory, whether it's sad, happy, usually every song that you know, you have tied an experience to.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go down the deep and also the highs, the lows, the ebbs, the flows, the valleys, all of it. Because I think it's beautiful that I can think about those things and either think about how far I've come, or the wonderful memories I had with that person, or maybe that makes me think, oh, I should text them or whatever. So there's just that connection with music that everybody has it.
Yeah, because there's definitely songs that you would say like you associate with a past relationship and
college, high school, mom and dad,
your best friend.
Yeah,
you went to that concert.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now I can add the Lord into that, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, and yet even that same song that's got a past memory, depending on what you're going through right now today, there could be layered meaning even on top of that again.
Yeah.
Based on your experience, and that's why I like bands like Mr. Mister who put out, and bands like you too, who put out some stuff that when I was a kid growing up, I thought, you know what, I want to be the kind of person that never forgets to say, Lord have mercy, no matter what my faith felt like that day. And a song like Beautiful Day, trust me, I wouldn't be speaking on it in front of a crowd of hundreds and hundreds of people unless there was something that had spoken to me individually too. And again, preaching isn't all about me. It's not all about my experience. But for the people that are out there listening, I'm the first listener.
Right.
I'm listening too.
Yeah.
It's speaking to me, hopefully, as much as it's speaking to anybody else. I haven't figured it out. I just trying to tap into it so we can all tap into it. My point is, I'm just there in some ways listening with all of you too. It's working on me as much as it's working on anybody else.
Well, thank you. I'm sure, we'll have you on again. Who knows what we're going to talk about, but I always appreciate this time and appreciate your insight. So we'll get everything online, normalgoesalongway.com.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, anytime you want to talk music.
I'm in.
All right. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Jim.